Hello and welcome to the Aware Show. I am Lisa Garr, and it's just a joy and a pleasure to be with you here today. If you ever want to listen to our show, not on the radio, but on our podcast, you can listen to our podcast on demand at any time. And you can also share information from there. So check it out, the Aware Show podcast. And which, if you love what you're hearing, just share it with a friend because that's what we're doing is spreading information for positive growth and change. Today, we are talking about relationships. So, have you ever heard, oh, we never fight if you're in a relationship, or we fight all the time? Fighting is something in a relationship that my guest today, Dr. Linda Bloom, who is a relationship incredible expert and a psychotherapist as well, and a marriage counselor, she teaches that there's different ways to handle your differences, but the important thing is high functioning, successful couples do handle their differences in relationships well. And she's got tips on how to do that. So, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me, Linda.
I'm delighted to be here.
Yes. So, I just love the fact that you think that the art of fighting is an art form.
Well, it is an art form. And like any art form, some people have talent for it. Some people really have to stretch to do it. And I was one of those people who didn't have good models in my family of origin, and my husband didn't either. So we
Okay.
had to stretch because there was a lot that we needed to learn, but we got great help. And it is a joy and a privilege to pay it forward and to offer it to other people.
So, fighting, what do you exactly mean by fighting?
Well, differences are going to be inevitable. We're attracted to people who are very different than we are. And there's a good reason for that. Some wise part of ourselves know that other people's strengths have strengths we don't have. And they
Yes.
sense that in us. And so this intuitive, natural knowing brings us to people, magnetizes us to people who are very different than we are. And those same things that are very compelling in the beginning drive us nuts after a while.
Don't
And
they?
so when we start to feel irritated and resentful and angry and sometimes even enraged, to allow yourself to feel that, but not act it out,
Yes. Yeah.
not to be bitchy and demanding and controlling. And it's
Right.
easy to go dark. And we want to handle the differences. We don't want to cover them over. Everybody's heard that don't sweep it under the rug, but we want to do it with grace and style. And
And that takes care of you. Yeah, that takes
yes,
care
we
of
need to
yourself.
take care of ourselves,
Yeah.
but we need to take care of the relationship while we're taking care of ourselves. This is a balancing act here.
Yeah, yeah. And this has to do with parents, this has to do with children, this has to do with couple relationships, all sorts of relationships, is speaking your truth, feeling heard, and also hearing the other person, which
That's
is
right.
an
Take
art
some stable self-discipline.
form.
Tamp it down so it
Yeah.
doesn't come out with tone in the voice,
Yeah.
doesn't come out as a command or a demand or a reprimand, and to be
Yeah.
dignified about it. Fortunately, there's a lot of us who have intense feelings that we got a lot of chances to practice.
Yeah, there's a lot of charge on it, and the charge comes from being unresolved. It doesn't, when you that one thing will trigger you every holiday, or that one thing will trigger you because you don't resolve it in the moment, right?
That's exactly right. And
Yeah.
when my husband and I teach our courses, we call those the incompletions.
Mm.
They do not go away.
Mm.
And some of them, they don't ever resolve, but we just make a big space. There are going to be some differences that are irreconcilable. The greatest relationships and the happiest euphoric couples have some of those.
Right.
And you
Right.
need to know what those are, and you just make a big space for them. And that's the quality of tolerance and acceptance. Do you
Hmm.
know? But most of them are workable. If
Yeah.
if we learn to speak about what we feel, our vulnerable feelings, because underneath that intensity of the anger and the resentment, there's usually fear or hurt or both.
Mm.
There's some tender feelings there.
Hmm.
disappointment, the loneliness from feeling disconnected, not seen, not heard, not understood. If we can hang on to ourselves and get a hold of those vulnerable feelings and speak about those, that invites connection.
Oh my gosh, this is so true for me. My husband's a very linear engineer tech person, right? And I'm this creative, flowy, boundaryless thing. And he has helped me learn boundaries that are very important for me because I used to really let people kind of take advantage, cross the boundary, not speak my truth, be, the doormat for everybody, had a bunch of people on my coattails. And then I finally listen to my husband who sets boundaries. He has this radar for somebody that is going to cross that boundary. He will cut that right away. Just cut it off right away he sees it coming. And it's like too late for me by that. So he has taught me so much about seeing that person that's going to take advantage of the niceness in me, that's going to cross the boundary. He's helped me so much with that because I was resentful for a long time of people that would take advantage of my generosity. And I learned it wasn't their fault, it was mine.
Well, there's some co-conspiring going on.
Totally.
They
Hmm.
sniffed it out that you would be an easy mark, so they took advantage. And when you got stronger and clear, and God bless your husband, what a beautiful gift he gave you. You learn from his strength. You learn from the difference. And I would bet my bottom dollar that he learned a lot from you too. My sense is that the artistic part of you, the intensity,
Compassionate part of me. Yes.
passion, the
Yes.
heart. Do you
Yes.
know he might have been a little bit too much in his head,
Yep.
that he got to feel his heart and where life is going on in vivid color in feelings from
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. Exactly. He learned about community. He learned about compassion. He learned about, everything. And that's so true. Yep. Very, very true. It's so interesting. We've always known we're totally different people, and we've always felt that that complements each other. And so then after COVID, he jumped into my business. So I had this 10-year, I think 15-year business that I was running. And at COVID, everything in that business changed. And he jumped in and applied his linear mind, his engineer tech brain, and changed that entire business around. I could never have done that by myself. It was absolutely needed. So he has such a wonderful archetype. He's kind of got this red cape archetype, very much of a hero. And I see that in him all the time. When he helps his clients that's computers have crashed, he's helped save people's lives. He loves saving, people on the side of the road. We're big cyclists. He'll always be the one to stop and help them with the tire and whatever. He's got that wonderful archetype, and that's where we're together. That's the part of us that's together. And then he's got this linear thing, and I've got this butterfly. So I'll tell you just one more piece, and then we'll get back to everyone else. Sorry. But for our anniversary, for our 20-year anniversary, he gave me a rock with a butterfly balloon attached to it
Oh,
because he's my rock and I'm his butterfly.
yes,
Isn't that?
that's beautiful. And he can ground you
Yep.
and you can lift him
Yeah.
to the higher realms. And this is the living example of opposites attract, complements attract. And when you really open to what are we supposed to be learning from each other, I mean, it just doesn't get better because it's a very exciting dynamic. When
Yeah.
you're busy trying to make him into the Prince Charming of the figment of your imagination, or if he's trying to make you into Princess Charming, rather than really showing up for the beauty that you each are, and we're all such a mixed bag. We've got our glorious golden shadow, but we have our dark parts too,
Right.
to make room for all of that. And
Yeah.
when we learn from each other and when we play team, and this is in romantic partnerships, but it can be in parent-child, it can be siblings, it can be on the job. We utilize each other's strengths and we learn from each other. Rather than resisting, we embrace.
Yes. What about people who are not, who want to be in relationships, who are lonely, who really crave that relationship but can't find the right person because they're never the perfect partner?
Thank you for the question. If you look through critical eyes, you will find the flaws, and nobody's perfect. And that can be a way of protecting ourselves that nobody measures up, rather than just finding somebody with good raw materials and rolling up your sleeves and getting to work and make a contract. Maybe it won't be a lifetime contract. Maybe it'll be for now. We're lab partners and we're practicing our good relationship skills, our communication skills, our negotiation skills, our conflict management. We are practicing to get good at it. And we can only win, even if this relationship doesn't turn out to be the long-term one and the lifetime one. Okay, I'm in the game. I'm forward. I'm moving forward.
Hmm.
That's really important. And there are so many lonely single people, and they need to risk themselves and get in the game, not be too perfectionistic, with the checklist that they've got to have all these things. Find somebody who really is kind and interested in learning and will learn with you. And then you've got a winning combination there.
That's, you said earlier that there are things that you just don't agree on and that you have to coexist with. So say someone is getting in a relationship or they're in a relationship and there's some inherent differences like finances. Like there's always the spender and the saver seem to attract to each other for some reason. But how does one cope with that? And how, when there's a lot of fighting that's maybe being done, take an example of the spender and the saver.
The spender and the saver doesn't have to be a deal breaker.
Okay. Okay.
If they learn how to manage their differences well. You listen patiently with curiosity and wonder to the saver listens to the spender, and the spender says life is to be enjoyed. We're saving for the future. We don't know about the future. Let's go on that vacation now. And the saver says, I feel anxious and frightened and insecure if I don't have an emergency account, because health problems come up and your car breaks down and things happen, and I need that. And when people have a conversation, they can learn from each other and find common ground. That, in my point of view, does not have to be in the deal breaker category. There really are some deal breaker categories, but most of them are not. You can't have half a baby. So if somebody wants to have a child and the other person doesn't want to, as much as you love each other, it would be wise to let go and find somebody who's going in the same direction that you are, to have family or not have family.
Mm-hmm.
The other deal breakers are addiction, alcohol, drugs, sex addiction, gambling addiction, but it's not the addiction itself. It's not getting help, not trying to heal from the addiction. And
Right.
there can be values differences. Do you know there's some people who really value honesty and other people are a little bit more fluid about it, or a lot more fluid about it. And if you have a values difference, that can be a deal breaker.
Huh.
Most things are not in that category. Those are the severe ones. The spender and the saver doesn't have to be in the deal breaker category. If people really listen to each other with tremendous respect and find understanding, they can work it out. Then the spender says, well, how much do you need in that emergency account for you to be peaceful so we can go to Hawaii?
Mm.
And they both get some of their needs met.
Interesting. I have a client who her husband cheated on her and she's still with him and she still has animosity about it. But what you're saying is it's not about the cheating, it's about the value on the honesty. That's such an interesting. Could you talk a little more about that?
Yes. Do you know that infidelity does not have to be a deal breaker?
Wow.
Chronic sex addiction, lying, that can be a deal breaker, but a person's entitled to make a mistake. Don't we all make mistakes?
Right.
And her partner may have really learned that when you make an agreement for monogamy, you really are better off keeping it. Just like all the agreements that we make, we're way better off when we keep them. And he may have learned his lesson. He may be truly contrite about what he did, and he needs to work on forgiving himself. But she also is using that grudge that she's holding, the resentment, the lack of forgiveness to protect her heart. And it will damage their relationship and hold it down at a lesser level of well being until she dares to trust again, if he's really learned his lesson and he really is contrite. And that can take a while for the trust to build back up. And you must not sweep that under the rug. Each time she has that fear, she needs to tell herself the truth. Maybe she talks to a girlfriend. Some of the time she may need to talk to him. And if he's wise and wants to win back her trust, he'll say, honey, bring it to me. Because I've learned my lesson and I know I'm going to be trustworthy from now on. And I'm looking forward to the day when you will know that too.
Mm. Yes, I could tell that she wasn't really pursuing her dreams because she was really kind of stuck on that. And that makes sense that it wasn't doing her a service to to not move on, but to more consciously express her fears than she could have been because it was preventing her from doing other things in her life. So I guess I can understand that. Being in a relationship it is I think it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of conscious work. It's not just an easy thing to do. You have to work at them. And we came from a lot of, let's talk about the equality in relationships that in the 50s, there was definitely always the male was the breadwinner. And then it started to balance out, I would say in the 40s. And then it started to balance out more. And 60s, 70s, now it's pretty much a dual income household perspective because the economy is, really kind of forced everybody into that. But it doesn't, the dual incomes are not always equal. So there's always going to, maybe there's going to be one person that makes more money than the other. How do you deal with modern families and bringing in different levels of income, yet still being equals, sharing? Is that come up commonly in your practice?
Yes. And like any differences, the difference in the income that each partner brings in, that they tell the truth about that, if they feel uncomfortable about the difference, why it is that they feel uncomfortable, if they feel disadvantaged, if their income is less than the other person, that they have the idea that the other person has more power and control and influence about decision making. Do you know that they get to the roots underneath the discomfort? Because it doesn't have to agitate and irritate as long as we make that big space. And what I'm talking about the big space, is there's no taboo subjects. Money is one of those subjects that often couples don't want to talk about because it's such a loaded symbol. Do you know, of security and trust and success and competence. But if they really take it on and lean into the challenge and they talk about how they get triggered about money, how they feel about money, how they feel about themselves as an earner and the amount that they make, that can be a very fruitful discussion for understanding and building the trust. And it's just one aspect of relationship. We live in kind of a money mad culture here. I teach in other countries and they're not money mad like the United States. It's
Really?
so competitive and it's so materialistic here that there's a lot of energy on the amount of money that you make. And do you know, we have many aspects. So maybe we're not the one who makes the most money. Maybe we make much less, but we have other attributes that we bring. And look at the whole gestalt. of what we bring to the relationship and have self-esteem about the gifts that we bring and the contribution that we make. And materially is only just one way.
I'd love to hear perspectives from other countries and relationships. What's the priority and where have you taught in other
I've
areas?
taught in Scandinavia,
Hmm.
in Denmark, and in Sweden.
Hmm.
And, the government, you pay 50% of your income in income tax, but they
Right.
take care of you. So your health care is taken care of you, your education is taken care of you. When
Mhm.
you're an old person, they take care of the babies and they take care of the postpartum moms and the dads. And you're so taken care of that people don't work at jobs they don't like. If they don't like their job, they can leave because they know they're never going to be destitute when they're old. The government's going to take good care of them. And you're in trouble if you stay at work past 5 o'clock. So they don't have workaholics. And I think that's good for relationship when people don't have so much invested in their work and their career and making a living that there's more time for your family, for your romantic partnership and to devote to your kids and party with your friends in the dark of the winter there. They have these long, 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 long days and they
Yes.
light candles and they party. And
Yeah.
I think that we have a lot to learn from these other cultures who don't put quite as much emphasis on the material part of life.
Mm, that's that's very true. It is a very materialistic country, the US, extremely, and it's built on that. I mean, it's built on materialism, unfortunately. It doesn't have to be, but it is. And it's something that we get to, deal with because everywhere you turn, you're constantly marketed to saying, buy this barbecue, you'll have a better, food, buy this bed, you'll have a better relationship, buy this thing, and it'll make you better. And it is definitely not the message that is true. That's not the true message at all. What do you find people and couples complain about the most? What are the biggest triggers that you hear about?
Uh-huh. I hear that people don't feel that love is being shown to them in a
Mhm.
way that is deeply nourishing.
Mm,
And that's related to the culture. It's not just family of origin. Do you know, I'm a therapist, so I believe the family of origin influence is a strong one, but it's not the only one, the cultural influence. And you see how this is related to the definition of success in the United States is about money and power and influence and status. It's not my definition of success. And when I teach my workshops at Esalen and Kripalu, I challenge, did you make your own definition success or are you just going, with the party line
uh,
that's being fed to you? Because my definition of success is the depth of our loving relationships. How
mm,
many loving relationships do we have in our life? And if we're blessed to have a partner, is it a deeply fulfilling, satisfying, loving relationship? And
mm,
when you make that the priority in your life, you won't be suffering with feeling like you don't get enough love because that exchange is going to be on a daily basis. Wherever you are in the world, if your partner is traveling, do you know that
yeah.
you know that your heart connected to them no matter where they are?
So how can you do that? You're saying that the biggest problem is the depth of feeling loved. How can you and then you add on fighting and disagreements to that. Where's the solution in that?
Yes, when you are really triggered
Yeah.
and you get really angry, there's something there, the growth waiting to happen. If you can calm yourself down, sometimes it's just a few breaths, sometimes you have to take a longer break than that. And we wrote this book, An End to Arguing.
Oh,
Do you know? And one
nice.
of the chapters in here is called The Most Underutilized Tool in the Toolbox. And the most underutilized tool in the toolbox is timeout. To take a break when you get triggered and you
Hmm.
want to fight or you want to run away or you're frozen. And you take a break and you settle down, you bring your nervous system to a more quiet place where you can think about what's hurting me right now, what's scaring me right now. And that's a different conversation. That's a fruitful, connecting conversation. And even if it's a difficult conversation with the person who's hanging in there with you, you feel cared about, you feel valued. They're in there struggling with you to
Yeah.
try to come to some understanding. And that's loving behavior on both parts.
Hmm. That's, is there a, as you said, a timeout, but is there a safe word? Is there a white flag? Is there something that, is there a corner you can go to? What do you suggest for timeout?
Well, I had a couple that used to do this. So
Hmm.
I've offered that to a lot of people. You
Yeah.
know, the basketball timeout.
Yep. Timeout, timeout. Yep. Go to your
Everybody
separate corners.
has to have
Yeah.
their safe word.
Yeah.
Do you know when it gets a little too weird
Yeah.
and a little too painful? And I always tell people when you take your time out, it's very important how you take it. You do not stomp off and slam the door
Mm,
because that's a message to your partner that they're impossible to deal with.
maybe they are.
Yeah, they're impossible in that moment, but you can be pretty impossible yourself. So
Hmm.
the responsible way to do it is to say, either I need a break or we need a break. And to have the agreement in place before the gnarly subject comes up that either person can call a break and it must be respected. Then if the other person goes behind a closed door, the partner doesn't come banging on the door, you're quitting
Right.
on me, what's the matter with you, you quitter,
Right.
you're awful, you're a runner, judgment, judgment, blame, blame. You have an agreement in place that you're taking the break for the well-being of the relationship. And you both agree that that is the most loving thing to do when your neocortex is not working, when
Mm.
only your reptilian brain that only knows fight and flight is working, you don't have your creative process and your options available to you. The best thing you could do is take a little break, calm down. You don't take your break and steam yourself up about how impossible the other person is
So you
to go
take
back and
time.
get them next time.
Right. Time
You
is the key. Time is the definite key.
you take the time to compose yourself and bring your pulse rate down, bring your, blood pressure down, bring your intensity of your racked body, that you are meditative calm,
Hmm.
and you come back with that intention to learn, which is a mighty intention.
Yeah.
I want to understand, not necessarily agree, but I want to understand your point of view. And just having that respectful attitude builds the trust back up.
Yeah. Right. Right. Well, I'm wondering, I mean, you have a lot of great perspectives on the history of relationships. If you look in the animal community, there's only one species or two that mate for life. Do you think that the human being is meant to mate for life? There's
Mhm.
a 70% divorce rate for a reason.
The the divorce rate isn't an indicator from my point of view of it's hardwired into the human species to not mate for life. The divorce rate being so high, from my point of view, is because there are not yet enough people who are passionate about using their romantic partnership as a growth opportunity.
Hmm.
It's a small segment of the population. I'm guessing that it's only about 10% of partnered, committed couples who make it to highest zone of what a relationship can be, the co-creative partnership where there's egalitarian sharing of partnership, sharing of power, of utilizing each other's strengths, of compensating for each other's weaknesses. Those people who are in the highest 10% in the super marriages, They have developed as an individual, and each individual has coordinated their up level so that the relationship up levels with it. And when people, just ordinary folks, you don't have to be a rocket science, has passion and intentionality and commitment to develop themselves to be a highly emotionally intelligent person and enrolls their partner to do that along with them, you're going to the success realm.
Mm, mm. You know, I've never quite heard the word super couple before. Is that, I mean, is that a term that you use or that you see a lot of as a super couple that's getting it right?
Yes. And, my husband and I have both been couples counselors for decades. And there came a point where we just heard so much struggle and so much anger and so many sad stories.
Yeah.
We said, we need an antidote to all of this darkness. Let's go find the happiest couples that we can find and interview them and let them tell us the secrets of this success in their own words. So we found these really happy couples. We interviewed more than 50 of them. We had to narrow it down so the book would be reader friendly and it wouldn't be too big. We narrowed it down to the 27 stories that illustrated the points that we wanted to make.
And what did you find they had in common?
They're super communicators. They have super marriages because they're super communicators. They're very in touch with their feelings, and they're brave enough to expose those feelings, particularly the vulnerable, tender ones. They have dedicated themselves to growing. If they were impatient, they became more patient. If they were kind of weak, they decided they wanted to be strong. They took risks. They grew courage. If they were too much in their head, they
Mhm.
dedicated themselves to being in their heart. There are a lot of qualities that we need to develop to become more emotionally intelligent. And they dedicated themselves to getting the skills down.
Even though they might not have been raised with them. I mean, were any of these couples, did they have models of good?
Most of them didn't, but they had that passion for learning, lifelong learning. They went to the workshops, they read the self-help books, they instituted what they learned in their therapy and the self-help books and the workshops, and they kept growing. And they went up the charts. They practiced commitment and they practiced individuation. Do you know
Mhm.
that we call it, when we teach our workshops, the dance of love and freedom, that we come together and we're emotionally close. We got that urge to merge,
Yeah.
sexually and emotionally, and we come close, but then we let go. And we're two unique individuals. Sometimes we have friends that our partner doesn't like.
Mhm.
Sometimes we have interests and activities and hobbies that our partner doesn't like. Sometimes we like to watch movies that our partner doesn't like.
Right.
So we're two unique individuals, and we respect that individuality. So we learn how to do together, which is the emotional and sexual intimacy, and the against, and how to work with our differences skillfully, and the apart, that we're two separate, unique people.
Have you found that couples are doing more of the apart together thing, like living like roommates? Have you noticed that?
You know, I think that there's some of that around, but the people that I interface don't want to settle for being what Harville Hendrix calls psychic strangers. They don't want to live as roommates, because people who come into my realm, they're motivated. They're motivated to take the workshops with us. They're motivated to do the counseling and
Ah,
intensives with us, and they don't want to settle. They intuitively know there's more available. We haven't had sex for a long time. We sleep in separate rooms. We sleep in separate beds, and we do our lives so separately, and it really is not going to work on the long term. I'm too lonely living that way. Our kids are grown now. Do you know? Well,
Right, right,
sometimes their kids aren't grown. Sometimes they're still raising kids, but they feel apologetic to their children because they're not really modeling a good partnership for them. And they say, I think we can do better than this. Can you help us? We didn't have good models. I don't even know what a good relationship looks like. That's
right,
one of the reasons that we wrote The Secrets of Great Marriages. We had so many people say, I didn't see a good marriage with my parents.
right. Can you
We're
show me
born
one?
anything like
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
I
What did
need
you
to know
call
what it
that?
looks
You
like.
called it psychic, what is that? Strangers?
Psychic strangers.
What does that mean?
Psychic strangers means they may live together, but they really don't share their inner life with each other.
Oh.
They're just going through the motions. I don't even really call that a real marriage.
Hmm.
That's an arrangement. Do you know that's not my definition of marriage? In marriage, you really share your lives with each other.
Mm. Hmm. That's interesting. That's kind of what an arranged marriage is it's more of a familial marriage arrangement than it is a deep connection with the two individuals, right?
Well, there's some countries like India that have arranged marriage. They're doing better in the happiness department than here.
Isn't that interesting? Why is that?
Well, they have a fierce commitment supported by family and community and their religious belief system. So they have supports that are missing
Right.
in our country now.
Yes. And here, most of our in-laws, it's a common factor that the in-laws don't get along. Hmm.
Yes, the families can be wildly discrepant in their belief system.
Yeah.
And the couple needs to respect that they come from different lineages, and that's part of the attraction about the opposites attract. And what can we take from our family of origin and our long lineages that really is serving us? Because every couple is on their own to have their own code of ethics and
Hmm.
their own guidelines for how they live. And they have to be willing to be guilty of the sin about doing their family,
Right.
not to feel that they're betraying their family loyalty, that they are taking what is beautiful and honoring that, and then adding in what they learn from their partner and their lineage. And then there may be some unique things that didn't come from either of the families that they discover on their own.
Hmm.
If they are living a growth model, they're going to be exposed to different ways of doing things that maybe neither one of their families taught them.
Right now, I think there's a large amount of the population, I think in the US, that are in that sandwich generation that have aging parents and children either still living at home or semi-dependent children that the couple themselves gets sandwiched in between those needs, always external needs that are people requiring help and needing help from them. And there's not a lot left when at the end of the day it comes to how to communicate or how to be with the relationship with other stressors involved, especially aging parents and sick parents. What do you recommend for that?
You're absolutely right about that. Between the demands of the dual careers
Yes.
and raising children and the aging parents that have health issues,
Yep.
the couple relationship sometimes gets the leftovers,
Suffers, yes.
the leftover crumbs. I tell every couple that I work with, whether they're raising kids or they've got aging parents or whether they're, busy with political campaigns or their spiritual practice, no matter, how thin you feel you're spread, you make your romantic partnership a priority. You get help. Maybe you have to throw some money at the problem,
You
to
get
get
some
the old
therapy,
folks
yes. Mhm.
watch so they're not in danger of falling, or they may need help. And you don't want to neglect the children or be irresponsible about the children. You don't want to neglect your career, but you must prioritize the well-being of your relationship with date night, with regular check-ins And every day is not too much, in my opinion. Some people don't even do it once a week. I think that's minimal.
Check-ins, you mean communicative?
Yes, check in with yourself and check in with your partner and really have a meaningful conversation. So, date night, regular check ins, and romantic getaways. And don't just wait for your birthday or your wedding anniversary. Do it more frequently than 2 times a year. Prioritize the well-being of your romantic partnership, because I see that as the hub of the wheel. And the kids and the career and the, saving for your old age and your portfolio and all of the other things, caring for the aging parents, all of that is going to go a lot more smoothly when you two are a working team. That's the hub of the wheel.
Okay, being a working team and arguing in a healthy way.
That's exactly right. And there's a difference between having a passionate interchange, like a good debate, can be very animated. Where you go over the line to an argument is when you're trying to coerce the other person to change their views about something or their behavior. So you need to know where that line is. And when you get to that line where it's going to turn into an argument where people start to feel offended and defensive and combative, you want to stay away from that line. And that's where the art comes in, of
Yeah.
knowing just where that place is, that sweet spot where you stay in dialogue. It can be intense, but it's not an argument or a fight.
Well, it can go from a passionate argument to something hurtful very fast.
That's when you go over the line, where the other person feels insulted, when they feel ridiculed, when they feel put down, when
Mhm.
they're not feeling understood, when they're not feeling respect, then the trust drops. And
Mhm.
that's the line you don't want to go over.
Yeah. And what about when I'm sure that this can appeal or apply to relationships with families as well, especially since there's this big political divide. Our country was 50-50 pretty much in politics. So 51-49. So how do you deal with that with the families that some members are completely in a absolutely different perspective than you are?
Yes, I tell people that if you feel that family members will not relate to you about their political orientation in a respectful way,
Ever?
you're better off not bringing the subject up at all. You
Great
mentioned
idea.
boundaries earlier in
Yeah.
this session. Do not put yourself in harm's way. There's a way to draw a boundary very clearly, and you say, I don't care to discuss that, and you change the subject.
Hmm.
Don't make them bad and wrong. You don't let them make you bad and wrong. Some people are so fierce and so intentional about trying to convert you to the way they see it as the way it is. There are a lot of arrogant, righteous people, and they're not going to have a conversation with you with the spirit of goodwill. If you feel that there's a little openness on their part and you can trust yourself to be open as well, you bring that curiosity and wonder, and that can be an illuminating conversation to understand why it is that they want to support that candidate, what they admire in that candidate, what they're hopeful for in that candidate, what they think that is going to do for them eventually. Now, we may not agree, but the point is not agreement. The point is understanding. If we show that level of respect to understand their point of view, maybe they will reciprocate and show some interest in our point of view and want to understand why we support the candidate that we support and what we see. We're not fighting to try to convert them to our point of view. We're just offering it for them to consider.
That is amazing if that could happen. That would be incredible. Have you witnessed that happening?
I have seen it. I have done it.
Okay.
No, and this is the art form of having differences We can be strong in the way we see things. We can be strong in the way we do things, but we're not rigid about it.
Hmm.
That
Interesting.
flexibility, that patience, that curiosity and wonder is what makes the big space for the differences to peacefully coexist. They do not have to aggravate us.
Very interesting. I wonder, yeah, I'd love to see that. That would be such an interesting study to do, is to really speak about how both political parties could, this isn't only for romantic relationships, this could be applied to political differences as well. And it could be very triggering, but that would be the best thing to do, is to teach each other to go to their individual timeouts. Yeah.
Every level, at the little microcosm of the society. Do you know the family, the couple, and the family is the basic unit of the culture? So we could do it from the grassroots up, that everybody makes their family and their community and their friendship network as kind, respectful, trusting, loving, caring as possible. And in the higher levels, when people have terrific communication skills and are emotionally intelligent at the highest levels of government, they will be interacting with each other, playing team rather than being adversarial.
It's very interesting. That's a very, very intriguing conversation in terms of the differences. I think that would be one of the most healthiest things you can do, but in the political divide, it's usually about making the other side wrong.
Yeah,
And you would have
that-
to eliminate that.
That's why we need to do it from the ground up.
Or curiosity.
Yes, and I think that if enough families, I'm talking millions of families, are creating this kind of loving, connected behavior, do you know they are likely to not be preoccupied with healing from betrayal and healing from arguments and healing from distrust, that there is going to be energy left over to address the issues: injustice, do you know, prejudice, prisons, inequity of income, these things that need people to actually get involved and do something about improving the society. People are so caught up in their small life that they don't have an abundance of energy, Operation Take It to the Streets, to take on the bigger issues. So when each family takes responsibility for that, and each member of the couple takes a high level of responsibility, we inspire the people around us. We're the torchbearers. We're the beacon, not to show a model of a working relationship to our children, but our friends and all the people that we interface with.
Hmm. Very interesting. That is true. When you can heal that in the home and you can have that relationship conversation in a healthy way, then you can take it to the next level and the next level and the next level.
That's exactly right.
So that's what I've heard before, is that healing politics begins in the home. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. See, I'm old enough that I went to college in the 60s. Do you know?
Yeah.
I was in college in Boston, my husband and I, and we were sitting in and demonstrating and marching. We marched on Washington, and the slogan was, the personal is the political.
Fabulous.
Yes,
Yes.
so it starts with us.
Yes.
Each one of us is an individual, the people that we're closest to, our family, our community, and we can have an impact to hold ourselves as powerful enough to do that.
Yes. I mean, that takes full integrity. That
That's
takes full
exactly right.
integrity. Hmm.
I love the word integrity. It comes from integer, which means one. And we define that when we teach, my husband and I, as what you feel and think and say and do all lined up as one.
Hmm. Now, tell me a little bit about your teaching with your husband. How long have you been teaching?
Yes, we've been teaching at Esalen for about 30 years.
Wow.
We've been teaching at Kripalu for about 20 years. And before we were teaching at Esalen and Kripalu, we were teaching our own workshops. It started out as Partners in Commitment. Now our most popular workshops are Secrets of Great Relationships, Love, Sex, and Intimacy, and From Conflict to Connection.
Oh, those are powerful titles. Powerful titles. And how long have you personally been together, the two of you?
Yes, we have had our 50th wedding anniversary.
Oh,
We
wow.
were married 52 years and we lived together for 4 years before we were married. So we're together 56 years. Honey, that's a lot of working it out because we're
That is
really different. And so we made a big space and we have learned from each other to respect those differences and be enriched by them. And we're having a great time. We're one of those super marriages and we
yes.
made it to co-creative stage and we're really enjoying it. And believe me, when you start to get, we're both 78, so when you start getting up in years, do you
Yeah.
know, sometimes your memory slips a little bit, you're not as vigorous as you used to be, and you really need to be working as a team. You need to be working as a team when you're raising kids and raising your careers, but when you get older, you're really challenged. Do you know? And I think the couples who have done their work ahead, they're big advantage for them that when you face medical crises and health issues, and you
Yes.
don't have the vigor and the strength that you had when you were a midlife person, you really need to have gotten that work done. And then you can, enjoy your golden years.
That's a wonderful example that you are living, and I don't think you have a lack of energy. You're fabulous. You have a ton of energy. I want to mention your website. It's bloomwork.com, BLOOM work.com. And you can find out all about the courses. And I love the titles. You've done the work. You've really written. How many books have you written together?
We've written 5.
Mm,
I'm in the midst of writing the first one by myself.
okay.
Because we co-wrote those 5, and there's another one in the works about the habits of exemplary couples, which will probably come out in the new year.
Mhm.
And I'm writing another memoir. We wrote a memoir about the time when we went really dark and we had an irreconcilable difference that just wouldn't let go. My husband was a corporate guy for 5 years. And so he was giving his best energy to his work and
Mhm.
developing, his career. And we had 3 little kids. And I was like a 50s wife. And I wanted to get the iron frying pan and smack him over the head with it. I was so furious about the broken agreement to mutually support each other's careers and bring up the kids together.
Mm.
So he played that out and we made it through that. And we wrote a memoir about how it's called That Which Doesn't Kill Us.
Ah,
It just about killed our marriage, but we made it through. And so it's a gory story with a happy ending for people who are really in trouble about how to have the breakdown become a breakthrough instead of a breakup. But the one that I'm writing now is really about enjoying the happiness in your golden years, but you earn your way in. You don't luck your way in. You earn your way in, and it's the lessons that we learned in each phase in our life such that we're having, this golden time now.
and then another one after that would be what to do, how to have a relationship if you're a widow.
Oh, oh,
Yeah, that's
that
also a
will be
big
a
one.
tough one. That will be a tough one.
Yeah,
But
life after loss.
you're right. You're right. That is something that needs to be written, and I haven't found much about that. And believe me, I've been looking.
Maybe it's you that needs to write it because you have
Oh,
enough tips up to this point. Maybe you could just at some point really stretch yourself because it is so many have lost and had golden relationships that are now gone and they just don't know how to live beyond that. Yeah.
my friend dropped by a couple weeks ago, and I told her that this is my main concern, is my fear about having to go on alone. That Charlie,
Mhm.
because men die sooner than women usually.
Right.
And this was Diane Cirinsoni Jampolsky, and her husband
Hmm.
died a few years ago.
Hmm.
And God bless her. She gave me something to hold fast to. And she said, love never ends.
That's
He still
beautiful.
loves Jerry so
Of
much.
course, I remember interviewing Jerry a long, long time ago. Well,
Yeah.
there's also community too, and that's a very healthy thing to do is stay in community even after loss. And these relationship strategies that you're talking about with reconciling differences is going to come up everywhere you go. So,
Everywhere.
yep,
I've got my women's group.
yep, we all
I'm
do.
my women's group, my sisters. When you get those women together,
Yeah.
magic happens.
I'm a big fan of the women's groups. We have to have our women's groups. I know men have to have their own groups too, but we certainly know how to have fun.
And my husband's in a men's group. And I
Good.
have a deep debt of gratitude to those men in my husband's men's group because there's a way men love each other that no matter how much I love my husband, they need that male bonding.
100%.
It's
100%.
very, very important. So I have a lot of gratitude for the support those guys give each other. It's profound.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Linda. It's been a pleasure talking with you. Bloomwork.com is the website for all things about the blooms and anything having to do with creating exemplary relationships. Thank you again. And
So glad you had me. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
me too. Me too. Thank you so much. I honor you and I'm grateful for you. And until next time, I invite everyone to stay aware.